Hello, welcome back to Postman API testing. This is RESTful. In this lecture, we're going to learn how to test post API request using Postman. So before we start our testing, just let's have the doc information that we have. So here is our contract or documentation. You should already familiar if you watch my last lecture where we have covered get request, how to test the get request. So here we're going to cover the post request. You can see, so here is the base URL resource, and here is that there is no query over here. It has a resource. So the API endpoint is this, the API endpoint, and then method would be the post, and then since it's a post, it means we're going to post some record to the database. So if you remember that this API, it's all about the user data. So through the post request, we're going to create a new user. So assume that this is the user document, like username and the job. Okay, that's what we're going to create a new user about by using username and job using the post method. And here as a success, we're supposed to get as a return from the database. This should be the name should be the same, the job title should be the same, and it will create its own unique ID. Whatever would be the ID, it will be auto generate, okay, with a timestamp. Okay, as a response we're supposed to receive that. And then status code supposed to be 201. 201 is status code. Usually it means it's a successfully return the response, as well as when you when you create some data to the database or post to the database, it's 201. It's been created, the new record has been created. And also we'll see the validation like we did in our last lecture. So I would say, if you haven't watched the last lecture, please watch the last lecture so that you have the idea how we use this scripting to do the validation our test. Okay, so let's go. So before we go, let's let me copy the so let me copy the API endpoint. So this is our API endpoint over here. Okay, let's go minimize that, and then now let's go back to our Postman. So over here it was our last get test cases we have created in our last class. So let's create another one for the post. Okay, so create a request or add a request. Okay, so give a name over here. Your name should be over here. Create new user. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. And here is your API endpoint. You're going to place it over here. Your method would be the post, right? And then over here there's no parameters, so it's fine. So but you will have a body because it is a post request. It means you are going to post to the database. So what data you want to post, you want to create, you have to pass. So let's go back to our over here. So this is the one, the request body. You see the request body, so just copy it. And don't worry, this file will provide by your developer, the API developer. Okay, so they will provide you. So let's come to over here, and then for your post it will be raw. Select the raw and then select the JSON. Okay, so because you are going to pass in the data along with your request. So and that time you have to select what type of data and what would be the format of the data. So we're using JSON, okay, for the REST API. So everybody use JSON. So this is the JSON. So place it over here. So it is a name like RESTful. Okay, let's place it as RESTful, and the job is QA leader. Okay, whatever. Okay, so place it over here, QA leader. Okay, so as a response, we're supposed to see the same name and the job title beside with a unique ID. Okay, so let's click on send. It's very simple. Here we go. Here is your response. In your response body, you can see the name is the same name, and also the job title is the matching, and also it's created one unique ID with a timestamp. Okay, you can see that. So, and also we see this 201, which is we're expecting this is the status code. So it's passed, right? So since it's passed, we see this as a human tester. So now we're going to enter the code so that our Postman can validate our response, like as you have seen in our last lecture. I'm not going to explain again details all of the. So for the writing the test case, so let's go to back to over here database. So this is matching and this have done created. So this is the validation code. So just copy the code and then go back to our tool over here. So where we're going to place writing the test cases, over here under your test, and then in over here place the code, and then over here. So what you were, so we're saying this is a one test case, validate status code, response code dot code is 201. So we're matching this 201, we're matching with our expecting code is 201, the status code, and we see this it is already showing, so we're matching that. And also the second test case, so we're calling the parse, the method, so, and we're passing argument our response body, so that, and we put in a variable. So response, this variable is holding the data about this response, right? And now, so this is our first test cases. We're going to verify the first name, or we're going to verify not the first name, we will say just name. So there is no first name, not last name, just say the name. Okay, so name would be response. So now the response dot name, so response is referring this response, and you notice you're calling for name. If it doesn't work, this is the path of your node. Okay, if it doesn't work, you know that there is a tool, it's called JSON response, JSON's pathfinder. You can go there and you can place this code, and then you can find exactly the path for the node. I have explained and I have shown in my last lecture. Again, that's why start from the beginning, so that because each and every lecture have the reference from our last lecture, have a relation with the last lecture. So don't jump directly over here. Okay, so here I'm going to match, so the name should be equals to full, and also not the last name, but I would say verify, let's verify the job title. Okay, job. Okay, verify the job title. So this is the title of the test cases. So whatever you want, you can place it over here. Response dot job, it's the QA leader, and then make sure it's matched with that. Okay, so that should pass our test cases. So now how many test cases we have? 1, 2, 3, right? So let's go and run it again. So now here is the test result. Go over here, you can see all 3 test cases are passed. Validated status is passing, so it means this 201 our expected it's showing on the response. We see this, we already know it. And then also it's validating for the name and also validating the job title. It's all of them are passed. Okay, so that's the way you can create a data or post the data to the database using a post method, and also you can write a simple JSON code to validate your response. Okay, I hope that you understood. So that's one test cases. Okay, so in this class, in this tutorial, we're going to cover a couple of more test cases using the post method. One would be login test. It is very interesting. So how we can validate, how we can do the login test through the Postman for API. Okay, so here we are back to our document, and here you can see there is another test cases over here. It is a post also where we're going to validate our login test. To do this, here you need to know what would be the body, request body. Okay, so this is the endpoint, it's same endpoint, right? So your endpoint would be the same. No, sorry, so endpoint is different. Okay, so this is your endpoint, this is the API endpoint that we need. So let's copy the API URL and the method is post, and this is the data, the request data. So like the valid email address and password, like exactly we do in our UI testing when you do that login test. Like you need a valid email address and password to test that, to do the valid login test. So we're going to do a valid login test, and also we'll see invalid one. So this is the valid parameter, like a valid email and a password. And then when you pass a valid username and password in API, through the API, as a response from the database, its response a token. So it is create auto generated token. This is a token value. You can see this is a token value, and it is called token. So token, it's confirmed when it's passed, generate a token, and it's passed as a response, according to your email and password. It means this email and password it's valid. If the API doesn't respond, doesn't get any token as a return from the database, it means that email address and password is not valid. Your credential is invalid. It's supposed to show that time some sort of error message. What would be the error message? It all really depends on the company, like what type of error message they want to show. Okay, so we'll see one of the negative test cases too. So bottom line, you will receive a token if the email address is your credential is valid. Okay, and also your status code supposed to 200, and then also we'll do some validation tests. So let's go back to over here. So now let's create another request, add a request. So we'll say, let's give it name of this test case. So I will say valid login test. Okay, valid login test, and here your API URL. Okay, so, and what would be the type is a post. So when you do the login test, it is also part of the post. Okay, because you're not updating, you are passing some data, because the get, you can ask me like, why is not get? Because when you say get is only retrieve some data, so there will be no body, there will be no other data testing, there will be no data or body data for that request. But for a login, you have to pass some data, like credential. So that's why it will be part of the post, and your developer also, they will provide the document and they will mention you what type of method you are going to use. So it is a post method. So here let's go back to our the code for the login credential. So along this your method, you will pass as a body, so select the raw and then select JSON format and then pass your credential. Okay, this is your credential, then click on send. Here we go. As a response, you can see over here there is a underneath the body there is a token created. The keyword is called token, and this is a random token, so it will auto generate. So every time the token will be different, so we'll not able to validate token, but we see this, there is a token generated with a token node underneath the token node with a node, and also a status code 200. So which is completely in showing our expectation result. So it is really it is a pass, right? Your login test is pass. So in that case, if you want to do a login test, you can see over here through the validation. Again, we can do the login test validation through our tools. To do this, go to the test, and then over here place the code. So what is the test case? Now you're supposed to know it. It's very simple. We can test one of the status code. So it's the response code is 200, which is the status code, and also from the response body, all we can verify is there a token string is there or not. This keyword, this token word is string, is that showing it's the part in your response body or not. So we can see if it's a response successfully, if it's a generate token, definitely there will be some token string in your response body. So that's what we're going to verify. So here is the test validating token presence. So response body, since we're just checking the keyword one strings, that time all you have to pass a response body dot has and pass the string as a token, right? It's very simple. So and after that, and then click on send. Here you go. Let's go to our test result. In your test result, both test cases are passed. It means our valid status code is matching, this 200 is matching with the response, and also we found this token keyword, you know, in our response body too. So this is a successful or valid login test through the API, for API using Postman. Okay, so now let's do a invalid login test. So what will happen invalid? So let me create another one. So let's see that if I can just copy or just, you know, create another one. So you can duplicate, right? You can just copy paste. Instead of, you can say there is a duplicate, so it will be create another one, similarly another one. So just, you know, rename this one. You can just rename this one, you know, you can say invalid login test. Okay, give a name invalid. This is the test case name over here, invalid login test. Remove the copy, and then over here you can say, you know, this is the invalid login test. It's the same endpoint, and then everything is same. So if you just, let's go to our testing data. So along with, so assume that, you know, we're passing some invalid, you know, credential authentication. So let's remove our password. So it is an empty password, you know, empty string, so nothing up there. And then let's see what happened. So click on there. So it is not supposed to create any. Let me check again. So here, let's run again. So make sure that, you know, you have an email and there is no password. It's an empty string, just empty. Okay, there's nothing over here. So let me run again, and then let's go to the body. So you can see the body, it's showing error, and that is saying missing password. So that's right? So this is the message. So whatever the message it's supposed to display, it will mention on the document. Your developer is supposed to say you, but it's showing some error. It didn't generate any token this time because we didn't pass any valid password. If you see our test case also, here is the same test cases like scripting over here. You know, we supposed to receive a 200 status code, but in this case, since it was invalid, we received 400, right? And then we supposed to get a response token if it's valid, but we just receive an error. So since this is the invalid, you know, since this is the invalid, so this is our expected response code is 400, isn't it? Because this is invalid. This is you know, we're intentionally we're doing some invalid tests. So we know that if it's an invalid test, if your authentication is fail, that time it will not supposed to tell you that 200 your status code. It's supposed to tell you 400. So our test case, to make it pass, you know, this is right. So we are expecting 400. So you can update over here 400, and also in our response body we supposed to expect an error message. Okay, we supposed to respond a error string, and whatever the message, you can validate with the message, but in message maybe will change if you provide invalid username. This time we provide invalid password, so it's showing invalid password. But maybe it's if you provide invalid username, maybe that time it will say missing, you know, the username. So whether you can confirm, you can create more test cases for invalid username. At that time, you know, you can match with that, or you can just make sure there is an error. Okay, error is string is there. So and then there will be some message. So we're very to make it very generic. Our test cases we're using error. Okay, now let's run again. Now it is passing. It is passing the pointing, you know, considering invalid test case, invalid authentication, right? Our authentication was invalid. That's why, you know, and we're expecting, if it's an invalid authentication, we're expecting our the status code 400, which is matching our test cases, you know, our test cases status code, and also we're expecting there will be some error string in the response body. which that's what we're saying. So that's the way you can also do a invalid test or negative login test using the post method. Okay, so that's all for today. Stay tuned. Please like, subscribe and share. Have a good one. Bye bye.